Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Mediocracy E3 podcast. Woo! I'm your host, Charlie, and I'm joined by Tristin.
Hello!
And we're basically the only ones in Mediocracy who actually took the time to watch all of the press conferences at E3.
Chance couldn't be here.
So the first of the big conferences was Microsoft's conference. They talked about the Xbox 360 and gave a lot more details about the Xbox One. They also happened to show video games.
Gasp!
The press conference at Microsoft opened with Metal Gear Solid 5, confirming that, in fact, Metal Gear Solid 5 would not be a PS4 exclusive.
Pow pow, shots fired.
After the Metal Gear Solid 5 trailer, they announced that the new Xbox 360 is coming out. This new 360 is redesigned to look like the Xbox One, but all it really has is a vent. In addition, users who have Xbox Live Gold memberships will get 2 free games. These games include Assassin's Creed 2.
I went on Xbox Live last night. Fable 3 was up, and it was actually up since the morning, and no one knew why until the conference happened.
One of the exclusive games that was shown, or exclusive on release, was Rise, Son of Rome. In the game, you play a Roman military captain, and you have to lead your troops through
QuickTime events.
Yeah, basically, it looks like all the combat is based on QuickTime events. There are ranged sections, there are sections where you have to play in formation.
I like the tactical combat, because while he was fighting multiple guys at the same time, quick timing and killing them, he was also simultaneously commanding his troops to take down towers, get into defensive positions, stuff like that.
Then, after that, came one of the biggest announcements at E3. Killer Instinct for the fucking X-Bone!
Whoop whoop!
For so long. Everyone's been wanting a sequel, and now it's finally here. Sadly on, a pretty terrible console, but it's here. It's here.
This is after Microsoft finally worked through the licensing problem that they had because a movie company owned the rights to the Killer Instinct movie franchise. Problem is that it was preventing both from making movies and games, so they kind of just worked out a way to cooperate with each other. I guess everyone wins today.
Other big news is that Insomniac Games is developing a game for the Xbox One called Sunset Overdrive.
More shots fired! Pow pow!
Yeah, you see, Insomniac was really famous for their games on the PlayStation like Ratchet & Clank and Spyro, but now they're developing a game that looks to be an open-world kind of parkour-style FPS game. Very creative weapons. I mean, one part in the trailer, there was a guy who was shooting records out of a gun, like old gramophone-type records. So it looks pretty creative, and man, Sony must be really, feeling it right now because Insomniac, that was one of their exclusive studios for a long time.
I liked how they brought out Kojima at after showing Metal Gear Solid 5, just to rub it in Sony's face.
Another exclusive to Microsoft, Forza 5 was shown. The only real thing that was unveiled for the Forza 5 game was the fact that the AI learns from the cloud. We don't exactly know how this works yet, but the way it seemed to be explained was user information gets uploaded to the cloud, and then the AI in the game becomes better from learning from the experiences of real players in the game.
Also, apparently, the game watches you while you play, learns how you play, and then when you go to work, it will then race your friends and earn you credits, kind of like a bot in any other PC game.
Let's say you're racing against a friend and you know that you're better than that friend, but because the AI is controlling your vehicle, you might lose and it might affect your standing, but it seems pretty similar to a ghost in another racing game. Like, you upload a ghost of you playing and then your friend can race against that. I guess it's kind of a little bit more genuine because, you have the other cars there and you can, interact with it. But then the human element is still gone. So if a guy tries to bump you off the road, the way you react isn't going to be accurately simulated. Another game that was shown was Quantum Break. Now, we've been kind of curious about this ever since it was announced at the unveiling of the Xbox One. The information that we got was it's supposed to be a bridge between TV and games, because everyone wants to turn on their Xbox One and watch TV.
But Defiance, a game that does the exact same thing, has been out for roughly a month and a half already.
You fucking tell them. Another game that got teased was D4. It's Walking Dead on a plane. That's what it looks like. but it was just a teaser trailer, so there's nothing really to talk about.
D4 is actually made by the same developers of Deadly Premonition, the cult hit.
Best game in the fucking universe.
So much coffee in that game, man.
One of the more unique games that was shown at Microsoft's conference was Project Spark. Basically, it's a tool, or I guess a video game you could call it, that lets you create your own game using Smart Glass and the Kinect voice commands. It's kind of like an RPG maker, but a lot of things are very automated, so if you choose to, for example, change how your world looks, you don't have to upload your own textures, it'll just do it automatically for you. Also shown in the game was you can program different objectives and then tackle them in different ways, so let's say you program a boss fight outside of a village, well, your friends can join in the game and then manipulate the terrain in their own way, changing the map that you made so they can play the game differently. So one of the things that was shown was a guy builds kind of a hill to get on top of the enemies so he can shoot fire down on them.
Looked a lot like an Earthbender because the guy was surfing around on the hills that he was making. He was creating them and surfing on them.
What are the options in this game going to be like? Because it's probably not going to be that in-depth. It looks very impressive, but its capabilities are probably limited in favor of like streamlining the experience for everybody. So I doubt that you could get extremely creative with this game, but it looks like fun. Another exclusive is Dead Rising 3. It's an open world zombie game as opposed to the other Dead Rising games where you could explore but you were limited in scope. This time it's an entire city.
In a fake Mexican town.
They advertised it as having no load times, so what was shown in the game was he went from outside in someone's backyard to inside a house to on the street, and it was all seamless. Struck me as kind of weird though is that at one point in the game he was standing on top of a car, the main character, and the zombies didn't even attempt to pull him off, even though I know they could reach him.
In the first game, how much was it? Like 150 on screen at the same time? And then they touted that in Dead Rising 2 it was close to 1,000 on screen at the same time, which it never seemed like there was that many, because you could never actually like pan out and see them. It seemed like there was definitely more zombies this time around, but they didn't seem to be attacking him. They didn't really look like they were trying. Like, he was running, like, really fucking close to them, and like he was dodging, but they weren't really trying to kill him.
He jumped on top of a house, and you could see zombies for like blocks out. So they were really trying to show off how many they could fit on screen at one time. BF4 is coming to every console, 60 frames per second confirmed, but the Xbox One gets the first DLC, which means Microsoft is supporting something that's killing the industry.
Microsoft always does that, though. They're always the ones that get first pick on DLC. I'm wondering how much they're paying for this, especially for next gen.
Halo in 2014, they're coming out with a new one.
Woo!
Nothing was really shown in the trailer except Master Chief walking around in a cloak.
Double woo!
A lot of sand.
Woo!
And some kind of Forerunner-looking object. Halo of the Colossus.
I am on the hype train!
Before we get into the technical details of the Xbox One, including the price, Microsoft left us with something that they referred to as exclusive or something that was only on the Xbox, but later was confirmed that this game is not an exclusive. That game is Titanfall, which I think was the best looking game of their entire conference. A first-person shooter, and there's a seamless transition between fighting as an infantry soldier and then fighting in a mech called a Titan. You can call them the mechs at any time, it seems. The infantry controls also are very interesting because there's a real mobility element. Your character has a jetpack which allows them to fly around. They can kind of hop off walls and stuff. So there's a mixture between the highly mobile infantry gameplay and the slower but a lot stronger mech gameplay.
I do like that when you jump into the mech, it's not just kind of like, now your body is just instantly gone, like you're just now a mech. The other mechs can punch through your glass and pull you out of your mech and kill you.
Yeah, I mean, the animation is really cool. You go next to the mech picks you up and puts you in the cockpit. Like, that is really amazing.
Yeah, and also the screens on it. I enjoyed how it actually looks like you're piloting a mech for like the first 4 seconds. Like the screen, you see all the screens around you.
Yeah, the screen boots up. It's really impressive. The game seems to have very nice balance in that there was, at the end of the trailer, the main character jumps out of his mech, he ejects, but he lands on another mech and manages to take it out as an infantryman. There is a definite balance between the two playstyles, right? I mean, even if you're infantry, you can still take out a mech, and obviously the mechs are very good at taking out foot soldiers. Now on to the technical details of the console itself. So, as we've said before, Smart Glass finally has support. Woo! Yeah, no one's really excited because everyone thought Microsoft had fucking abandoned Smart Glass. Get that shit out of here.
I've had Smart Glass on my phone for about 6 months now, and the only use I have for it is to type up messages on Xbox Live. That's it.
Microsoft also has an answer to Sony's share button called the Game DVR. This thing allows you to record gameplay footage and take screenshots without the need for a capture card. It also comes with something sort of like an automatic video editor in which you can cut your movie and give it automatic editing and frames and stuff to make it look like it was produced in an expensive program. Also really interesting is the fact that you're able to play one game while looking for a match in another game. Obviously this is because the Xbox One has the capability of installing games. More on the technical side, there's no more friend limit for the Xbox. If you have Xbox Live, you're not limited to 100 friends anymore, which is kind of unreasonable considering that I don't think many people have like 100 good friends that they play with every day.
I have 89.
Alright then, it's popular I guess. One of the bigger things was that Microsoft announced it's abandoning Microsoft points.
Finally!
It remains to be seen, though. If you have Microsoft points on your existing Xbox Live account, how are they going to carry over to the Xbox One? Because, well, how are they going to be converted?
They also didn't mention if they're going to be eliminating Microsoft points on Xbox 360 because your account is shared between both the systems. You pay for one service. So it still remains to be seen how they're going to handle this like as a whole.
One of the big things that's been troubling us for a while now, but hasn't even been mentioned by Microsoft yet, is the amazing community backlash to the problems of the DRM. As you guys probably know, the Xbox One requires you to constantly have an internet connection because it will check whether or not you're not doing anything bad with it. You know, piracy and stuff like that.
Actually, they said, in their own words, it has to check for updates, insert quotation marks, check for constant updates in your games to make sure that, everything's in check. No.
You know. In addition to that, we also know that the Xbox One has terrible support for used games and probably will not allow you to rent video games at all.
For now, no renting games, no lending games. You can give games.
Yeah, and your friend also has to be an Xbox Live friend for at least a month. Lastly, we're going to talk about the price of the Xbox One. $499, which is absolutely fucking pathetic.
It's a little pricey, but it's nothing we haven't seen before. Sony did launch the PS3 for $599.
The real problem, or the real interesting thing that comes with this, is that the Xbox One is also going to be 499 euros, which is the equivalent of over $600 in Europe. The Xbox One in Europe will cost more than the fucking PS3 did on launch day.
Yeah. Interesting choice, Microsoft.
If you buy an Xbox One and you pay for the Xbox Live Gold, which is how much a year?
$50.
So $50 a year on top of a base price of almost $600. The fact that you get no game rentals, no lending games, and DRM.
Basically give up all your rights to your games.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering why anyone in Europe would be thinking about buying an Xbox right now.
One thing I'd like to point out, though, is Microsoft is trying to go for the same thing that Steam does, but the problem is that it's doing none of the benefits that Steam gives people. Like, Steam does give the option, and there's massive sales.
Yeah, the sales on Steam make up for the fact that Steam itself is DRM. And Steam also doesn't require the 24-hour authentication. In Steam you can play offline mode. Basically, I think it's for a week. You can play offline. And also, Steam is an internet-based service. You have to download all your games. So it's pretty much given that anyone who has Steam has a stable enough internet connection for this. But if you're in a country where your internet cuts out, like Canada, you're gonna have a problem where you can't authenticate your games sometimes. I mean, if it snows in for a couple of days and you have internet from like Bell or something, basically you're gonna be fucked after the first day.
I'm not worried about my internet cutting out. What I'm worried is the fact that last year Sony got hacked, and for 23 days their PSN service went completely down, and people were still able to play offline. But if this was on Xbox One, where someone could figure out a way to hack into the network and cause it to crash, no one would be able to play games. Everyone would be locked out if the same thing happened. And I know that they're anticipating like ways to prevent things like this happen because they know it is a factor that they have to think about. But still, it's still worrisome that at any point, like out of my control, somehow I can just lose the ability to play my games for a while.
And you're talking about that, Xbox Live has been hacked before. Admittedly not on the gigantic scale that happened to PSN, but it has been the case that Xbox Live has been kind of poked through before. And that raises privacy questions because the Kinect is always looking at you. So if your Xbox is on and you're playing a game, well, where's that information going, you know? Because, yes, the Kinect can kind of see if you're smiling or hear that you're laughing, but it's kind of worrisome for a guy to be able to know that if he's looking into Microsoft's shit.
It's the same thing with webcams, because webcams can be hacked no matter how secure. Eventually, someone will find a workaround for it and can find a way to silently watch you. The same thing could happen for Microsoft. It might not happen at the beginning, but give someone enough time with the technology where all they have to do is buy it and get a look inside, they can eventually find a workaround to peek at you.
Yeah, that's the same thing too, is that the video game industry has not generally been known to be tech savvy about privacy. So even now you have stuff like Origin. Basically, they tried to sweep it under the rug that Origin will scan your entire computer, but people found it out like within the day. Then you look at stuff like DRM, where Ubisoft and EA say, yeah, but our games have DRM. No one's gonna pirate them because of the DRM. And what do the pirates do? Well, they just remove the fucking DRM.
It's sort of like they didn't learn anything from SimCity. Like, when SimCity announced that it was always online, so much backlash.